Welcome if you're watching the replay. I am super jazzed for today. Super jazzed. I'm waiting for Zoom to let people percolate in the waiting room. But I also knew that if I didn't hit record right away, I would forget to hit record. So you all get a few minutes of me coordinating my shit. Here we go. People are here. If you're watching the replay, by the way, I would love to invite you to shoot me an email with some of your big takeaways or ahas, or any of the things that you feel like you'd like a little bit more support on that you couldn't get because you were watching the replay. Now we'll let people in. Hello, hello. How are we all? Hello.
Morning.
How's everybody doing? Yeah. I was downstairs making my kids lunch and dealing with, the big feelings of a 6-year-old. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have to go. You're all on your own for a minute. So sorry for a little bit of a delay. Although, truth be speaking, that's how I roll. So you might as well know it early. Hello, Kaya. Welcome back. I'm so jazzed you guys are here. Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Mika. Mika, I saw your beautiful email. I didn't get a chance to respond, but I was so grateful for it. Hello, Anastasia, my love. So glad you're here again. I was spending a little bit of time collecting my thoughts for us today, and I got so jazzed. I was like doing a little dance in the coffee shop. So I always love those vibes. Oh, good. I love that you are snacking. I'm here for food. I'm here for people not being hungry on calls. So let's see. Some of you were here yesterday. I think Nicole maybe is joining us for the first time. Wherever you're at, or you're watching the replay, wherever you're at, nothing needs to be in consecutive order. So welcome wherever you are. One of the things I'd love to do to start before we kick off into my little plan for us, we went in a wide-ranging and super delicious conversation yesterday, and I'd love to know, as things settled in, if there was anything that felt different or any space that's shown up. And the answer could be no, that's fine. But in the past 24 hours, based on some of the conversations we had. Does that question make sense? Go ahead, Jean. Hold on, you're on mute.
Hello, and hello, everybody. Even if, I feel, anyhow, yes. Yes, the answer is yes. And yesterday you really shifted something for me by opening up the possibility that the angry self is a superpower. And I had to walk away and like do laps through the house and whatever. And that was very transforming. Very transforming. And I really appreciate that. And I'm not going to bother everybody with the story, but I want to share one image with you all because yes, the angry self can be a superpower. I didn't realize that I was already living with it. I was always well aware of anger as like, I have a name for it. Like that gremlin anger is literally the French word for girl gremlin, which is diablotine. And she's like this little green thing. But then I realized that I was already in touch with anger. It's the angry self as a superpower. And I think what you mean is once you give it its due, then you get the energy without the anger. Yes. Right? So I've been living with this gal. I don't know if you all can see her. This is Winged Victory. She lives at the Louvre. She is 2,000 years old, 10 feet tall. She has no head and no arms. this is me. I wear her. I have a necklace I'm not wearing today. And I realized that she's been here and I was not seeing that. So thank you. Without even realizing it, you connected a loop.
Oh, I have full goosebumps.
Well, thank you. I did too. I just about lost it.
You know what I love about what you're sharing? Just thank you, thank you, thank you. I also love one of the things you're speaking to is that like this welcoming home journey, this embodiment journey, right? This becoming, so many times it's the realization of like, oh, I've already been here. Yes. You know, I always say it's like totally like something, it's like this completely blew my mind. And also I always already knew this.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you though, because that was a big piece of the puzzle.
I can't wait to hear. I'm really excited about the unfolding for you, right? As you kind of integrate and absorb your like winged victory self. Lucky us.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you all, because that was a collective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was a whole thing. So anyhow, that's my story from yesterday. I'm gonna
all right. Perfect. Anyone else have anything that they want to speak to? Anything that shifted or softened or percolated on up?
Can I jump in?
Please go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, I think the realization that I don't have to try so hard. Yeah, things are just kind of unfolding and I'm appreciating all these little nuggets of insight that I'm getting from everywhere, and different connections are being made. And I really got a lot out of listening to other people, and it was striking chords in me. Resonance with Jean, and it's like, yes, I see that in myself. I just yeah, and I just, that was the main thing, is like, I don't have to try so hard. I can just keep going with the flow. And then I got a vision this morning of a dog swimming in the ocean, doggy paddling, and you know how they kind of look and they can see the shore. So they might not have pinpointed the destination, but they know they're heading in this general direction. And that's kind of how I feel. And I feel buoyant and loosely guided. So it's good.
Oh, I love this image. And you know what else I love about the doggy paddle image is like, you know, most of the time a dog's having fun in the water, right? And like we can like be treading and treading and treading. And I love this imagery of like yeah, there's something like joyful and playful that's possible in the swimming and in the not quite knowing, but pointed in the right general direction. Oh, that's really beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Welcome,
Yeah.
Eve and Jennifer and Andrea, who can't hear me because she's not connected to audio yet. Andrea, so nice to see your face. We were capturing anything that stood out for people who were here yesterday. Not required. I don't do things linear. You know that, Andrea. And then that's just also a perfect setup, Rochelle, because what you were speaking to, this sense of like feeling supported and also moving in the right direction, even though you don't know exactly the destination, is once again perfect transition. So thank you for that. So for those of you who weren't here yesterday, or if you're just jumping into the replay on day 2, which I love this vibe, yesterday we did some unpacking of like some of the things that you think you should be, right? And what I want to talk about today is start to make some more space for who it is you want to be in your business, right? Because often we don't enjoy the process of running and owning our business because we're waiting to arrive somewhere. To Rochelle's story, we're waiting to arrive somewhere before we can enjoy it, right? And what I want to do for us is figure out how we get to enjoy this now of our business, which then also allows us to you know, actually make more money because we're enjoying the whole process, right? So here's what I would like to invite everybody in, is to take a few moments to drop in wherever you are, if you're somewhere, if you're not driving a car and you want to close your eyes, that would be great. And I would just invite you to settle into your body to whatever extent feels comfortable or accessible. Just noticing your energy from the day, maybe the excitement and enthusiasm that you brought here, maybe the scramble to get here, just noticing that. Maybe settling in a little bit, a layer deeper, watching yourself settle beneath that churn, watching yourself fall in to the breath. If there's a point that the breath feels resonant, maybe the nose or the throat or the belly or the chest. And just honoring with gratitude that you have made this space for you. I honor that. I am grateful for that. And I want to invite you to send out the tendril of a question, like a shoot off of a plant, and watch where it grows. Inviting out the question, when you are in the energy of thriving, how does this business feel? Whether this is an experience you know or an experience that you are yearning for, what does it feel like in your body or your heart for your business to be easy and alive and vibrant and safe? And what vision of you stands or sits or dances or plays in the center of this vision? How do you feel? Who are you here in this space of thriving? What has fallen away? And what has lifted up? I want to invite you to take just a few more breaths here at your own pace. And then if you have a notebook, take a few moments to just jot down anything that stands out to you from this brief dropping in. Anything that you want to relish and savor and tuck into your heart about this vision of being in your business with joy. When you're ready, if you feel so inclined, I would love to hear from folks anything that stood out for them in this experience of feeling their business and their own selves in this vision. Yeah, Gaia.
It feels like play.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like work anymore. I felt myself, those days when you like wake up and you're going out, you have your iced coffee and everything's just synchronistic and things are just flowing and coming at you. And every little new thing that happens is like this little miracle, just like seeing a flower or something. And it's just surprising. And I think right now, leaning into like the surprise is exciting. It's not, I don't need to know what's happening because it's so fun when you don't know because you get to be surprised.
Oh yeah. The phrase I use a lot is surprise and delight. Oh, I love, what a beautiful reframing, right? Because so much of entrepreneurship is like, I don't know what happens next month. I don't know where things go. And also we have to trust, which can be its own terrifying journey. And we also then have the opportunity to be surprised and delighted. Yes. All right. Who else would like to share kind of what their what their vision showed them?
I'm on my phone and I don't know how to raise my hand. So is it okay if I just jump in?
Jump on in. You're perfect.
Okay. So I felt resourced and that I could outsource things like I didn't have to do it all myself. Then capable, confident, calm, but also excited and inspired. The freedom to be generous, and then also that feeling of independence that I can count on. And what fell away was uncertainty, fear, and procrastination.
Oh my gosh, there's so much joy in here. I'm just also witnessing generosity coming up again, and that being a driver for you, because I remember in our consult call for Alchemy, which for those of you who don't know is another group program I run specifically about money, you spoke about this hunger to feel generous, like be generous with like tremendous ease, right? And so I love that coming up again. And I love the dual, like feeling resourced, being able to outsource, and being capable as like a triangle feeding each other, because we so often feel like we earn and prove that we are capable by doing all the things, right? So I really love this vision of you being supported and that enabling you to be supportive, and also you feeling capable actually comes from you doing less. That just feels very juicy and like a lovely little knowing to tuck in. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, go ahead, Mika.
Hi, it's Micah.
Oh, Micah, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, no problem. I noticed that I felt a lot of compassion and I felt like my boundaries were present. Like I didn't need to fawn. I had compassion for myself having needs, and I felt compassion for my clients having needs. And like there was room for there to be divergence in that, or like just to communicate and acknowledge that difference.
Oh.
And I also felt like, I think more connected with my pelvis, just like grounded.
Oh my gosh, I love everything about this. So you might have heard this study before, but there's a really gorgeous Brene Brown study about empathy, and she was researching essentially people with really high empathy who were like particularly compassionate and generous, and trying to do her Brene Brown thing of find like what's the commonality here? And long story short, what the results showed is that the people who had the greatest amount of empathy and the most resources for the most compassion consistently had the clearest boundaries. And so this link between the boundaries are clear and then the compassion can flow, right? Because we can trust. I mean, those of us who work in service, like whose businesses are serving clients, I think this is especially powerful because it is this gift of when I trust my own boundaries, then I can show up and give my clients everything that they need, that they need, in the sense that I also can trust that I won't overgive. And for those of us who come from complex backgrounds around these issues, you know, we're kind of recovering people pleasers. I have watched again and again and have personally experienced these moments where our business dries up, the revenue dries up, because we are actually afraid of what will be asked of us if we let people in, right? Because we are have a complex relationship with our own inner boundaries, right? We don't totally trust our own ability to set boundaries. And so we have to be very careful. Like there was a period in my own business where I basically would only let people hire me if I'd already known them for a year, which worked fine. And also like, it's a long vetting process, right? But it was about my own relationship to trusting that I wouldn't overgive if I didn't feel comfortable in that mode of giving. So I really, really love this vision for you of compassion and security and boundaries all flowing together. That's beautiful. Anyone else have anything they want to speak to? Okay. These were gorgeous. And one of the things that I want to offer is that we have a tendency to whatever you just dropped into, whatever you just felt. And also, I want to also say, what you might have felt is just a lot of overwhelm and resistance. And that's also its own beautiful journey, right? You have the journey that you have, and it is gorgeous. So if you're sitting here and you had a different experience, I just want to offer up that also is that's exactly the right medicine there as well. And we can chat offline if you had one of those. We have a tendency, particularly in business, particularly because of capitalism, to place this vision, right, of the safe and secure and joyful and playful self on the other side of success, right? That's the destination. It's the reward for our good behavior, right? If I really nail this business, then I get to feel safe, then I get to feel playful, then I get to feel like I'm skipping in trust with the universe. And it creates a situation where the carrot is always dangling in front of the stick, right? We are forever chasing that feeling instead of actually experiencing that feeling. And we have a tendency to tie that feeling with the result of our business instead of the process of our business. And so what I want to begin to do today is to look at how being in our business gets to be a joyful practice, right? The running of our business, the strategy, the marketing, the promotion, all of these things that tend to be the means to the end. What I want us to start to unpack is how they get to have the joyful, compassionate, playful experience that you all just dropped into. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's what I want us to start with, is to think about from my perspective, I think there's a Zen phrase that I will butcher, or some Buddhist phrase that I will butcher. There's essentially, there is a way things want to be, right? That there is like an aligned state, which is not a perfect state. Those are two very different things, right? But there is a authentic expression. There is an aligned self, an aligned you in your business, that things want, an order things want to be in the same way that the plant will grow towards the sun, right? I have a plant, and no matter how I turn it, right, I keep having to turn it so that it's like not completely crooked, because all that puppy is going to do is grow towards the sun, towards the sun, towards the sun. You are doing the same thing, but we are confused by it because at the same time that some part of you is growing towards the sun, it's also within the confines of all of the conditioning and packaging and programming that you've been swimming in for decades or lifetimes, depending on your perspective. And so you're trying to grow towards the sun, but also you're kind of wrapped up in this packaging of what the way things should be, right? And so what I want us to look at is in any given moment where we are making strides and shifts of alignment in our business, there are two primary things that are happening. One is there is a layer to peel off of who we think we should be, and then a clarity to rise up of who we actually want to be. So what does that mean? How do we experience that? Just who you think you should be is the project of deconstruction, right? Who you think you should be is always false. It will always let you down. It will never actually get you where you want. And business in particular is rife with should, right? There were so many stories of these are the steps, these are the rules, these are the judgments, this is the expectation. And as a result, it becomes a very scary place to actually trust and honor or even hear how you want to be existing in your business, right? And so the deconstruction is peeling away the should, and the construction is rising up this intuitive you who knows how to thrive in your business, right? So the place to, so you're probably sitting there, you're like, yeah, that's all well and good. And how do I figure it out? Right? So one, you can come join the business incubator. It's going to be great. But two, for the sake of this conversation, the scratchy stories in your business or your life in general, or using the lens of business, are the gold mines for helping you uncover this, right? So in manifestation culture, you'll get a lot of stories of like, in order, you have to get yourself into alignment, and there's pressure to force yourself to feel a certain kind of way. We talked about this a little bit last time, right? That like, oh, gratitude is in alignment, so I have to force myself to feel gratitude. That is not what I'm interested in. I don't think that works. If that worked, it would have worked by now, right? Instead, what I want us to do is uncover how the scratchy, the sandpapery places in our business are the portals to alignment. They are merely showing us places where we are hungry to peel off a layer of should and rise up a layer of intuition and want and true desire. Does that make sense so far? Okay. So I want you to take a moment in your notebook and jot down some of the repeat stories that you have in your business of should, of worry, right? Though we all have the same, 20 ruminating thoughts all the time, right? And I would like to invite you to drop in for a minute. And if you want to actually put them in your journal, or if you want to put them here in the chat box, the chat might be also really great if you're up for sharing. What are kind of the things that come up a lot and a lot? For example, I just need to be more consistent is one that I hear all the time, right? So I'd love to think about some of these. Another one is I'm afraid of being pushy. I don't know how to get them to understand. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, right? So what are the collection of kind of frequent worries or concerns? Because for all that we would like to jettison worry, it can also be helpful for us while we're stuck with it. And if my questions ever don't make sense, please tell me, because I ramble through questions and I ask 5 at the same time. So always raise a hand and say, back up, say it again. I don't have enough experience. I'm not certified. Okay, I love that one. If people praise me, my ego will become too big and I won't like who I become. Oh, yes, that's so juicy. Yeah. Can't let people think I'm great. Gotta stay down here feeling kind of bad about myself all the time. That's my obligation to humanity. Yes, yes, yes. I have to do it all since I can't afford to hire others yet, which drains me. Oh, yes, Jill. So immediately I'm really curious to know what lives in all, right? I'm a shitty salesperson. Oh, Jean, this is my favorite. Okay, great. Jill, I'm really curious. I'm curious to know what lives in all, right? Because as we play with this should, right? Are there things that feel required that are extra draining because they're not actually what you want to be doing, right? That there's a story that it's required, but it's not actually a thing that we even want to do. And so it's extra draining. So yeah, I almost like of all the words there, it's the all that feels the most potent. And I almost want to like invite you to just spill out a list of what lives in all, and then start to pull out what might be required and what might be a pass. I think you might be getting a little bit of what I'm speaking to. And then Jean is saying that I'm a shitty salesperson, and also the angry self, her angry self. I shouldn't need to sell myself, so I won't because I'm protesting. Yes, you should all just see how fucking great I am already. Thank you very much. Yes. Love that. So I have a client, we refer to this version of herself as her monster queen. And we're like, my monster queen is not interested in performing. And that's what this resistance is, right? Because so as I mentioned yesterday, I worked in sales for over a decade. I was a sales director at the end of my career. So I have lots and lots and lots of thoughts about sales and selling. And essentially what I hear you speaking to is this really gorgeous thing where this part of you is refusing to perform and prove that she's worthy, right? She's saying, I am inherently worthy, and I'm not playing a game where I sing a song and dance and I perform for you. And also, there's another part of you that thinks, but nobody will know, nobody knows who I am if I don't sing the song and dance. So you're in the in-between, right? Where you're shedding something, or you're sorry, see, I'm getting all jazzed about this topic. You're shedding something, but it's not fully baked in, right? And so you get in this in between. So Micah says, I'm afraid of growing my business because I'm afraid of feeling and being out of control once I let myself be seen by strangers and they don't see me as I want them to. Okay, the out of control thing is so gorgeous. That comes up for so many people. I was talking to a client a couple of weeks ago about essentially creating a funnel into her membership, and letting essentially strangers come and join and she was like, oh yeah, that feels completely out of control, right? It feels very easy. The idea is ease, and also ease actually feels out of control. And so we keep things constricted because they feel safer, right? And E is saying, why am I the best to offer this? Oh, yes, which another version of that is like, who do I think I am? Which kind of goes back to what Rochelle was saying, which is, I don't have qualifications, right? And then Micah is saying, I'm so sorry. Micah is saying, I'm thinking of the singer. That's what's happening in my brain. So I'm sorry, Micah. No one will value my work properly. Oh, gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Okay. Each one of these is such a gem. And I am willing to bet most of the time when these come up, you have one of two options. One is that you fall down the rabbit hole of like, you're right. Who am I? Nobody loves me, right? Like, I'm not worthy. Or you try to talk yourself out of it, right? And you try to like come up with data about why actually you are all these great things. But neither of them really work, right? Because there's this middle option, which I want us to kind of unravel. Okay. So what I love in each of these is each one is pointing to a real hunger that you have internally, right? So for example, no one will value my work. The hunger there is this deep sense of value, right? And so part of the journey for this particular kind of story is the journey to an internalized sense of value, right? Jennifer saying, cycling between pushing myself too hard and overworking myself and not working at all, stuck, not clear on specifically what I should be working on. Yes. Okay, right. Because what happens is we get caught up in the story of what we should be doing, and we go and we go and we go and we go and we go. We push ourselves, but we're pushing ourselves using willpower, right? And I might have mentioned this yesterday, but we know from science that lots of psychology studies, willpower is a finite resource. So if you are making things happen, if you are building your business based off of control and force and willpower, you will burn out, because willpower is a finite resource. So that's why you end up with these phases of like showing up really, really big and then having to hide, right? Or it's the same thing as, a New Year's resolution where you start out and you've got, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z every day, and you last like 4 days and then you can't do it anymore because the entire project is based on will, and will is the finite resource. So you get tired, you get stressed, you get sick, you can't sustain it anymore, right? And so the muscle kind of collapses, and then you end up in this phase of needing to kind of rest and rehabilitate yourself. And so it ends up feeling like pendulum swings, right? So in this particular case, the answer then is about finding your internalized rhythm of how you want to be running your business, right? So I want to start, let me think for a second how I want to go next. I want to pick one of these and kind of deconstruct it and walk us through the process. Is there anyone who's willing to be guinea pig? And let theirs be, Micah, you're nodding your head. You want to speak? You shared a couple really beautiful. You want to speak to one that feels kind of particularly loud?
Yeah, I think the feeling out of control, I just don't know what to do with that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else relate to that feeling of growth? Like you tap into these moments of joy or desire or what you want, and it feels, Jean's nodding your head. Do you want to speak to it at all?
Yes, it's that there's this funny thing about it, because it's like, it's what you want, right? Getting recognized, whatever. And then my mind doubles back around and says, but I don't think this is what we wanted. Right. So there is the actual control, like the loss of control piece, but also like, oh shit, now I've sent myself down this path and I don't want to be this person, but I have no idea. It's just my mind freaking out. Like, actually, I often do want to be that person.
Right.
And it's my mind that's not so sure about that.
Well, what we're also speaking to here is vulnerability, right? The vulnerability of like allowing, of receiving, of being seen, of taking up space, of receiving money, clients, recognition, right? These are actually really vulnerable things, right? So receiving energy in general, right? To receive clients and money is a really vulnerable thing, right? So I also just want to say, if receiving money is complicated, if you are running a business or starting a business or dreaming of a business and it's not making a lot of money, it's not because you're low vibe. It's because it is a wildly complicated and vulnerable thing for a lot of us to receive money, to receive clients, to receive intimate relationships with people in the kind of client coach or client service provider model. And so I just want to say that if this is complicated, it's because it's complicated, right? And it doesn't have to stay complicated, but also I think, between comparisonitis online and a kind of manifestation culture, it can feel like it's not supposed to be complicated, right? And that you're doing something singularly wrong, that, you can't just recite the mantras and have it work already, right? Because there is this actual deeper feeling of being afraid of being out of control. I think is a common one, and also a really astute observation, because I think it's a deeper one, right? So it's one that we don't always necessarily realize right away. Is there anyone else who can relate to this question of control and desire, but your desire also feeling maybe out of control? No? Okay. Oh, okay. Guy is saying yes. Okay. So here's what I want to invite us to do. If you can close your eyes, if that feels accessible, and drop in a little bit, similar to what we did yesterday with Jean's beautiful angry self, I want us to witness this fear around control and loss of control. And I want us to begin to step into a relationship where it's neither right nor wrong, it simply is. And invite out the wisdom that lives in this part. So you can drop in and close your eyes and breathe into the space of loss of control. Just imagine the breath coming into the body and filling the space wherever it is that loss of control and fear lives. And just watching your breath kind of balloon into this space. Noticing any physical sensations as you breathe in and around to this game of control. Perhaps this notion of control appears as some kind of physical manifestation or object. Perhaps it is a color or a sensation, and you continue to breathe into the space. And observe if it transmutes or transforms as you breathe. Drawing up from the earth and out and down. And if you are ready, I would invite you to call forward the part of you who fears losing control. Witnessing how they appear or feel. Witnessing who they are. And as you breathe into this space and sit gently beside this part of yourself, I invite you to ask this self, what do they fear? What do they fear and what are they seeking? This part of you. What are they seeking and what would they like you, this bigger version of you, to understand? If it feels available, perhaps you invite them to set down the burden of control. If it feels available, perhaps you invite them to loosen their grip just a few degrees. If it feels available, perhaps you invite them to settle into the security of rest and allowing. without grasping. Drawing your breath up the soles of your feet from the earth itself, I invite you to take a few deep cleansing breaths. And whenever you're ready, taking all the time in the world, you can come back. Perhaps begin to roll your neck or roll your shoulders or sway in your seat. Maybe it even feels good to shake your arms a little bit. And come back to center. It's never required, but I am curious if anyone wants to speak to any insight or shifting that occurred for them in the drop-in.
So the part that came up for me was my dad. And once I realized that, I was like, this isn't the rest of the meditation felt confusing to me because I was like, okay, there's my literal dad outside of myself. There's my dad's voice inside myself, but it's not me. Yeah, it felt pretty simple and that felt confusing.
Oh, I love that. As in, like, it felt simple to see, like, oh, wait, this isn't mine.
Yeah, it was like, once I was like, that's my dad's voice, then just what was left, like everything that's me, I was like, I know how to be adventurous. Like I've done that before. It's like been a few years, but I don't know.
Yes. I love this. Okay. Also, how gorgeous is it that it's like, oh, this is really simple. And then our response is like, I must have done it wrong. I'm very confused because this feels easy, right? I truly love that. And that's exactly right. So if we go back to this model, right, one part of the journey is peeling off these layers of should, and they see that sometimes they are really deeply entrenched. Like this girl and her abandonment wound, like it keeps coming back. And I'm like, oh, we're here again, right? So sometimes they're deep. And also sometimes they are these moments of like, oh, that's not even mine. I can just put that down, right? And so I love this idea of just, oh, like, once that this is the gift of dropping in, right? So when we are trying to control these parts of ourselves, right? All of you shared these different stories. When we're trying to control them, we either push them away or hyper focus on them, right? We either kind of avoid them or like kind of muck around in them. But what happens when we actually observe them, it's sometimes this beautiful, perfectly simple thing of like, oh, I just don't even need that anymore. It's not actually even mine, right? Sometimes it's a deeper like, oh, this is a wound I've been carrying forever and I'm going to cry and like, have this big emotional release. Either way, what happens is that we then integrate. And so then you're no longer in resistance. And so clarity starts to show up and our actual kind of energetic pattern shifts because you're not at war with yourself around this question of control, out of control, being in control, right? And so choices appear suddenly differently. Does that make sense? Or does that last part need a little further explication? Okay. So what I want to pick one other example. So what I love is we've had this one example, which is very like kind of more esoteric, right? I'll use that word, right? This question about control, right? And I want to pick one that's like very tangible about business to put them side by side, right? So I want to use this example of being shitty at sales or feeling uncomfortable, like feeling like I'm afraid of being pushy. I don't think I'm good at sales. So I want to give us a moment. If you guys want to drop in the chat box, if you any stories that come up for you when you think of selling, sales, promotion. Feels cringe to sell. Yes. Okay. Love it. Cold calling, asking people for leads. Yuck. It takes a lot of work to get a sale. Also, yeah, cold calling is terrible and don't do it. Anyone who tells you that that's how to make it's a bad system, guys. Not required, not very effective. Okay. So, I'm bad at technology and don't know how to use social media. Don't want to. I sell. I need to believe. To sell, I need to believe in the product service. Do I believe in myself or the value that I offer? Okay, great. So what I love is already this question of selling has now all these other layers underneath it, right? Of like, it's not just this one story, right? It's a million stories, which again, is why the program's 6 months long, because this is the story for all of us. So, let's look at Jean's cold calling, right? Asking people for leads, yuck. Okay. And compare, and also Jennifer's, it takes a lot of work. We're gonna play with these two, right? Our tendency, so say your story around selling is it takes a lot of work and I have to go talk to a bunch of people that reach out to a bunch of random strangers, right? You're going to do one of two things. You're going to rely on that willpower and force yourself to do it, right? You're going to use that effort because somebody told you this is the way business works. And then you're going to burn out or it's not going to work because you hate it. It feels like slime. Or you're not going to do it because there's some part of you that's like, this is a dumpy strategy. I don't want to build my business this way, so I refuse. And then either way, you probably judge yourself, right? Does this feel familiar? Anybody play this game, right? The problem is that a problem is that we are in resistance to these stories instead of seeing them as assets. And the other problem is that no one's taught you how to sell in a way that doesn't totally suck, right? So the gift is that this story, it takes a lot of work to get a sale, is telling you something. It's telling you that you don't want to work super hard to earn people's approval, to earn clients, to earn revenue, right? You don't actually want to grind it out. And so you are looking for a strategy that doesn't rely on you constantly being in the churn, right? Versus last week, my friend Dr. Liz was on the call. That woman, she was talking about being burnt out, but also that woman genuinely loves the thrill of the chase, right? Sales and promotions is genuinely fun for her, right? So so if you are someone for whom that feels exhausting, but the only strategy you've been taught is an exhausting model, again, you will either do it and fall or you will avoid it because it feels gross. Right? So similarly, if the way that you've been taught about sales is to reach out and DM cold call, again, you'll do it. It will feel gross. It won't work. You'll feel despondent. You'll blame yourself. Or again, you won't do it because it feels gross and you will judge yourself for not doing it. Instead of looking at this sandpapery moment to say, what is this telling me? And in any given moment, any of these sandpapery stories in our business about strategy are telling us two things. One, there's a layer that wants to come off of should, right? And there's a thing revealing itself of desire. So for example, the should around cold calling is easy, right? I should be someone who just talks to everybody under the sun and hustles and reaches out to random strangers and isn't scared of that. So what who is if I can pick on Eugene, who is that version of that picture of the person who does this cold calling, or the picture of Jean who manages to do this cold calling and asking for leads? Who do you think you have to be in order to be her?
An asshole.
Ah, okay.
Sorry.
Great.
Right. I mean, no offense to the people who do it, but it's like for me to do that, and that's not even the angry self. That's like me, like,
Yeah,
I
right.
gotta keep this in check because it is icky. Whatever I'm asking for, it's making people overextend themselves and like, don't be a dick, Gene.
Oh my gosh, so much juice. Okay, great. Yes. So you don't want to be an asshole. And also so telling that you're asking for the sale is asking other people to overextend. Right. So there's actually multiple juicy things that are happening here. This just keeps like, this is like present, just like new things are coming out of this box, like Mary Poppins bag. Because what that phrase is saying is, one, you're afraid to be an asshole because it feels gross, but also you're afraid to ask for what you want because you think because other people will then be overextended, right?
Yeah.
So as opposed to, so okay, so again, going back to this model where one thing is peeling off, one thing that's peeling off there is like, what if your needs weren't a problem, right? What if paying you for your services was a gift and a delight for the people whose lives get to be changed by the journey? What if? And it's okay. This isn't a like, so feel that way today, right? But just like, what if, right? And it's also pointing to the way you want to act in your business, right? And so this is where I want us to look. So I have one more message here that I'm not reading. Oh, just a yes. Great. Okay. So if I can keep poking at Eugene,
Poke me.
so not doing cold calling, not asking people for leads, what is the sales process in your business? What is the way that you have gravitated towards selling?
Wait for somebody to be referred to me and then just like make shit happen.
Okay. All right.
That's how it goes.
And here's a question for you. Is that working? Like, does that system kind of work?
You know, if you like your income graph looking like like that, yeah, it's not a problem, but I am completely out of control of that. And there's all kinds of stuff that happens with it, but it is quote safer to just, and then also because I'm trying not to be an asshole, then I don't have to own it. If people are magically appearing, I don't have to own it. I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for the attention. I didn't do it. You can't call me out.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I want to underscore it is working, right? What we want to dial it up. We want it to work better, but that wasn't like a tricky question to be like, it's not what you want. Like that system is in some way working, right? Like it is, you have already begun to create for yourself. This is how I show up my business. My business works for me. I don't go out and like pound the pavement knocking on doors, right? And yet clients come to me. But the question is, how do we turn the volume up so that more clients are coming, right? And to your point, how do I feel powerful and in charge of like, hey, I have a bill due. I would like a client. And I know, right? I know how to create that.
Well,
So, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's okay. Because only thing I was going to add is that then that moment, like total existential paralysis freak out. Right. So then I've been booted out of like icky sales isn't even it, because I am like literally like under the desk, freaking out, waiting for something bad to happen. It's so it's super fraught, right? Like I don't feel like, oh, okay. So like I've got to, but I think if I had something, I'm gonna let you keep talking, because I think if I can reframe that, then I don't have to divert to freak out.
It also seems like to me like there's a middle thing that wants to show up, right? So in some ways this referral system is working, but what you're speaking to is in the fear of being an asshole, which is also a fear of being like powerful, right? Bye Kaya. In that fear, you are resisting, I'm sorry, let me back up.
Mhm.
What that's speaking to is that you actually have a desire to be powerful, right? And so the thing to layer in is like there's a part of your business is working, right? And this is the thing I want everyone to walk away from here and to spend a moment thinking like, what are the parts of my business that are working? And if you're sitting there like, Kylie, I haven't even started yet, great. You know what the part that's working is that you're showing up to calls about how to grow a business and that you're curiously exploring what that business gets to be. So let's always start from a place of you are not a thing to be broken. You are a process in constant evolution, but you are good at taking care of yourself. We just want more because we're humans and we want more, right? So recognizing parts of this are working, how do we layer in this relationship to power? So I am curious because I do think lots of people had things to share. Do other people relate to this this dynamic of, you know, feeling almost that like money comes in, money is also a surprise and a delight, and also I don't have any control or agency or power about when or how it comes into my business? Does that show up for anybody else? You can come off mute or you can pop it in the chat. Rochelle, 100%. E's giving a thumbs up. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of which direction to go for us. Because once again, we went on a lovely little tangent from my original plan, which I'm here for. Okay. Jennifer says, I've been stuck in the polarities with sales, either throwing the offer out there and hiding, then going into grasping. I have this offer, here it is, buy it now, then freaking out, why aren't more people buying it? Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So there's a part of me I would like to share that would like to jam 4 months worth of content into 20 minutes of our class. And I'm trying to decide what like bite-sized nugget would be most useful in this moment. Because this is a topic that I like really relish teaching, because a couple things that I will say. So having worked in sales before stepping into this for over a decade, working with all sorts of different sales. And at one point I had 25 sales reps reporting to me, which was too many. And and I can say for sure that there are a million and one ways to be a successful salesperson, right? I worked with one woman who was as introverted can be. And also she was on top of her shit. All of her customers knew that they would get quick responses, that she was on time with her stuff, that she was diligent, that she paid attention to detail, and she was great. She went out of her way to never talk on the phone. She hated going to conferences. She was a great salesperson, right? There are plenty of other salespeople who were charismatic, had these great relationships, would like scribble the offer on the back of like a notebook piece of paper and be like, you know, here you go. All of these models worked. The key was that the person who was an introvert was playing to her strengths, and the person who was an extrovert was playing to their strengths, right? They weren't trying to be the opposite. And so one of the things that I would invite you to do, first of all, is much like, what are the things that are already working in your business? What are the ways that you are in relationship to people in your business that are strengths, right? So, Jean, you have people sending you referrals, right? Again, would love it if it was more, would love it if you felt more agency. And also like you are building a web that is connecting you, right? So that's one thing. Another thing I would invite you to think about is how do you like relating to people, right? How do you like to be in conversation with people? Similarly, this is a great set of questions to ask yourself about social media. What do you like to follow on social media, right? Do you like following people who are teaching all the time, or do you like following silly meme accounts? Because if you're following silly meme accounts all the time and you're a very silly person and your social media presence is very serious, there's something that's incongruous there, right? So how do you show up? Like, who are you as a person, right? Who are you in relationship? And what do you like to consume on social media? And do those three things show up in how you are existing in social media or email or wherever you're selling? So that's the first thing, right? Because again, there is a way your business wants to be. There is a way you want to be in your business, and it's not by somebody else's rules, right? One of my clients said the other day, and maybe I said this yesterday, and I'm sorry, but she said, one of the things I get from working with you is that I don't have to be somebody else in order for my business to be successful. And that is basically in my experience, the project is constantly peeling off who you think you should be, right? And figuring out how we can dial up and play to your strengths, right? So that is assignment number one. The other thing, actually, I'll pause there. Does anyone have any kind of thoughts or questions or ahas about that so far? Thank you, amen. Great. Love it. Yeah, I'm here for the applause. My son today clapped at me to get my attention, and I was like, you can clap to tell me that I'm great, but you can't clap to get my attention. Okay, so trying to think of where to put us next. Okay, so some of you might have heard this before if you've been in my space, and also I think it's worthwhile enough and where we've kind of landed that I'll go with it. So I like to teach, and I kind of begin all of my, I begin a lot of my sales and business programs with talking to the different sales models, right? So the way I see it, there are three primary sales models. Two of them are dumpy. Likely you are afraid of one, you are stuck in the other in reaction to it, and there's a third way that I want to offer up for us. So the most common, which I'm hearing in the language people are speaking to here in the terms of not wanting to be an asshole, is the overpowered sales model. So this is the character who makes themselves really big and makes their client and customer really small, right? So they use manipulative tactics. They don't take no for an answer. They're pushy. They're coercive. They ignore people's boundaries. It doesn't feel good to be on the other side of it, certainly. And it also doesn't feel good in your body to be this kind of person. This is this is mostly what people think of when they think of sales, right? So it's I'm dating myself, but it's the dad from Matilda, right? The like used car salesman kind of slime ball, right? He's laughing. So I once made a social media post, and I was talking about these models, and somebody got all mad in the comments and was like, not all used car salespeople. I was like, so now I use the Matilda example. Our used car salesman was very, very lovely and not at all manipulative, but that's the stereotype, right? Is that there's this kind of this you step into this energy and the person is just really, really pushy. And I'm sure you've all experienced it in one area or another. What ends up happening if you are someone who doesn't want to be an asshole, is trying to run this heart-centered business, the last thing you want to do is be this gross, coercive, toxic person, right? You don't want to sell in a way that feels slimy and gross. You may be using some of those tactics because they're what you've been taught, right? So you might be using some of these kind of pressury tactics, and you might not like them, but you might not know what else to do, or you might be more likely swinging all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is what I call the underpowered sales model. This is when you make yourself teeny tiny and you make your client or prospective client a giant. And we often do this because we think that this is giving them their space, right? What this looks like never putting a call to action on any of your social media posts. This looks like having a consult call with someone and just offering everything, being like, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could do this and I could do this, instead of actually listening to them and saying, look, based on where you are, I think this particular offer that I have is what's going to serve you best, right? It looks like hiding energy. I use a metaphor a lot about if a new neighbor has just moved in and you want to bring them like a plate of cookies, the overpowered sales model, that person like brings the plate of cookies and like immediately barges in and is like, let me see your house. Here's the cookies, right? The underpowered sales model makes a plate of cookies and leaves it on the doorstep and goes to hide in the bushes, right? And so this can also look like putting one post out about one offer, hiding, and then, as Jennifer beautifully put, being like, why hasn't anybody picked me yet, right? Because we're not in an empowered dynamic. One of the other things that's really, really actually actively problematic with this underpowered sales model, even though we think we're being kind, is that we are not making ourselves safe for our clients. Because a lot of you here hold clients in transformational journeys, right? So they're coming to you to be like, I want to walk through my ancestral trauma. They need you to be big enough to hold them. And that begins in the journey of the sales process, right? So if you make them bigger than you, right? Like, you're not actually signaling to them that you are a safe space for them, because you're making it their responsibility to determine all of the boundaries of the space. Does that make sense? So the goal here is the empowered sales model. And in the empowered sales model, you are sovereign and your client is sovereign, and you are both the same size. Right? So what this looks like is you being able to speak your offer powerfully and confidently, trusting that your client also can say, oh no, that's not a good fit for me, but thanks. Right? And so you can show up and be big and powerful because you have also created the safety for them to say no, just as much as you have also made the safety for them to say yes. Right? And this is the space that I want us all to step into as we think about launch strategy, as we think about copy, as we think about consult calls, as we think about building and engaging. Are we using manipulative tactics, or are we hiding because we're so afraid of being manipulated? We're so afraid of being an asshole that we're hiding, and therefore teeny tiny small in our own life and business, and therefore hungry. So maybe literally because your business isn't actually taking care of you. Right? But as we peel off the layer of who we think we should be and honor who we want to be, then we get to continue just to go deeper and deeper into this empowered place. And this empowered place is also a wildly magnetic place. Does this make sense, this model that I'm speaking to? He's giving a heart. I love it. Is there anything that jumps out for you? It's one thing to hear a theory, right? It's one thing to lay out a model, but my want is also that this also feels a little bit of it, like there's some tangible takeaway from here. So I think one thing I would ask is, based on what I've just described, is there one action that feels available to you that would scoot you towards the empowered sales model in your business? One action, way of being, one kind of nugget of clarity that you're tucking away.
Speaking for myself, what I'm taking away from this is you just named some. It's nice because you named all the parts of this, which is very helpful, but also the paradigm that you sketched out here. What I'm able to see is that I actually do the empowered piece in fragments, and it's sort of like it's like, that's not the breakdown, right? I think what I'm taking away is that in my sales process, what it looks like is that it's like it's like the ignition piece that is the uncomfortable piece where I feel like I'm being an asshole. But then there is, once I'm actually in, you know what I mean? I will jump right in the pool, but like, I will not, you know what I mean? I will not go up to the edge. So I really appreciate like seeing like how the parts of me, because it's not all one thing, right?
Yes,
It's not
yes,
all
yes.
one thing. So I know what part, now I know what part needs addressing, because the part that just shows up as an equal doesn't need addressing because it already exists and it's already there. And really what wants to, right, and that not being an asshole thing has everything to do with, don't pull too much focus, don't do this, don't do, you know what I mean, and whatever garbage I was taught. So thank you for that.
Oh, yes. And so then, like, what does it look like to build the ignitions, like what the ignition
Right.
part of the strategy that
Right.
suits your energy, your momentum, your skills and and approach?
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
I love this. I was just talking to a client a couple of weeks ago who launched something for the second time, and we were looking at, like, okay, what are the pieces that worked, right? And what didn't? And we can have a tendency sometimes to see the whole thing as either working or not working. And the trouble with that is, we were talking, I think yesterday, we were talking about like how we can fall into victim mentality. And the trouble with that, when we see like it's all not working, I'm screwing all of it up, is that we actually, not only is it an uncomfortable place and a bummer of a place, but we fail to see with clarity where the tweaks can be made, right? And so it's not that Jean needs soup to nuts how to be a salesperson, it's that there are tweaks in the process. There's things to evolve. And like, one, that just feels more powerful to realize like, oh, I'm not a total dummy. Great, thanks. And then we can go in to begin to make those changes, and to, Kaya was saying in the beginning, it feels playful, right? Our business thriving feels playful. It's a beautiful thing when we can see that our business is an experience, is in evolution, and we can play with these places where we want to make tweaks. Oh, absolutely. Anyone else want to speak to anything that is like is a takeaway for them around this sales flow and process? Yeah.
I have a question, if it can be answered quickly, I don't know. So I definitely relate to the underpowered salesperson position, and I think I have moments of empowerment as well. But I think one of the reasons that there's a thing about being an underpowered where sometimes, or like often when I do have a client, like when I have had a client in the past, I've procrastinated and I've tried willpower and it didn't shift. And so then I've come to believe, or like, I'm like, I know that I'm an untrustworthy person for my clients. And so I'm like, I'm not asking for more clients because I don't trust myself. And so I'm wondering, like, what do you think the first step out of like to shift the procrastination piece would be?
So can I ask, is the procrastination like you have a client who signed up, but then getting them to like actually scheduling the sessions and kind of working through the container with them, you procrastinate on? Or you have someone who says like, hey, I'm interested, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I keep forgetting to respond to them?
It's like, I guess like the shape of my work has looked different in different situations, but like one of the ways that that's shown up is somebody will be like, I am commissioning you to do like this thing, and like, here's the money. And then I don't know, I just can't figure out like how to give the thing that they asked for and want. And there's kind of like that thing you were saying of like, oh, well, I could give you like these 20 other things and let me give you these 20 other things. But then it's like, they actually just want this thing.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. And I think once again, what I'm hearing is the insidiousness of perfectionism, right? And I think what I'm, and the other thing that I'm hearing, I'm hearing how, I think this can happen. A version of this can happen also, I think, in like even our social media writing, right? We can have an idea of something we want to say, and then all of a sudden we just keep not saying it and keep not saying it, right? We want to show up, we want to do the thing, and also it keeps being hard to do it. And I think in this instance, what can happen is the focus on what they want. And I know this is tricky because they've commissioned something, right? They have placed an order for a thing that they want. And also, when our attention is on what they want, our attention is also on people pleasing. And creating from that place of pleasing others is inherently a constricting, performative kind of creation. And the answer then is to, and again, this is a process. This is like the return to center, but the process then is about, even as they have placed a commission, how can the creation be for you? And I think the same thing I would offer for those of you who get kind of strangled in your social media presence, right? There's a good chance you're thinking about what they want to hear from you, or how do I make them understand it, or how do I write in a way that's clear for them? It's a suffocating way of writing. It's a suffocating way of showing up and speaking, and it will always have a little bit of a stranglehold on you, right? And it will drain you because doing for others will always kind of exhaust you, right? As opposed to doing for yourself. And so I would offer that the process here is about how we can unhook from, even as they have made a payment, right? Even as they have asked for a thing, that thing is also still for me.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Jennifer saying, I have to hop up a little early. I will catch the rest of the replay. Both of them are helpful. I love and appreciate it. Oh, yay. So glad. Any other thoughts, questions, ahas?
Hi. I was about to jump in with empowerment equals magnetism. And then Micah spoke up, and I'm so glad they did, because I have experienced that procrastination, like, without going to the long story, but I have avoided doing commissions. I will never issue gift certificates again because I don't want the obligation. And I procrastinated on something, and yeah, and so this piece about empowerment and perfectionism, and just like, whoa, that's a big deep hole I gotta look at. That's what I wanted to share.
Oh, it's funny because perfectionism has been showing up in so many client calls this past week. And so much of the thread, I think, of what we've been talking about these past 2 days is really about, what if you didn't have to do your business perfect, right? And that is a thing that I will always offer, right? One of the lines that I sometimes say is like, you get to be wildly messy and taken care of, right? You get to be messy, you get to be imperfect and taken care of, and have a successful business, because we so often carry the story that we are told, right, that perfection is required, and also it's impossible, right? So when our story is that our success requires perfection, what we are actually telling ourselves is that our success is impossible, because perfection doesn't exist, right? So if successful you is perfect you, successful you never arrives, right? And so if you having ease or joy or the number of clients that you want, or fill in the blank, is in some way in your subconscious rooted in perfection, what you are actually carrying the story of is that I can never have the thing that I want. Ease emoji game, man. Great work. Right? And so this is why I believe with all of my heart and soul in the way I teach business and in the business incubator, is because there are so few places that teach business where we strip off the rules and figure out what the desire is, and also figure out what the story of permission, right? Because all of these layers of should are about actually just giving permission for you to exist. And then underneath that is a way that you want to run your business, a way you want to show up in your business, right? And so if anything from these past 2 days has really struck a chord with you, I would just love to chat, even just a 20-minute consult call where you'll get to see real time that I'm not interested in pressuring you. Because I believe so fervently that the reason so many of us are out there kind of banging our heads on the wall, trying to figure out why it hasn't worked yet, is because you were given someone else's playbook, right? And that playbook doesn't take care of you. And so that's why it doesn't work, because it's not meant to work. It's not meant to work for you. But there is a way that your business thrives, and it's when you are thriving in it. And that's what we will teach in the business incubator. That's what we will walk through. We will walk through, the specifics of like how to have a consult call from this empowered sales model, how to create a launch that doesn't feel super exhausting and draining. I'm a big believer in like, let me show you the fundamentals, right? What are the components of good copywriting, or the components of compelling launches, so that you can then pick and choose the pieces that resonate with you or make them your own, rather than getting some formula. Good luck if it happens to match you or not. So that's my invitation. If you would like your business to feel fun and also make you money, come work with me. Any final thoughts, questions? Anything anyone wants to say to feel complete?
I would love to just share one thing, picking
Please.
up on something that Micah said. It's kind of, I feel like there's this thread that's come all the way through for me, starting with Micah initially talking about control. And then Rochelle's talking about empowerment is magnetism. And then this thing of being disempowered, and then this universe of rules, and how there is a level at which, if we are, and I'm speaking for myself, if I am actually in some ways a little bit afraid of my magnetism, I'm a little bit afraid of my magic because I can't control it, right? Because sometimes I feel like I'm controlling it, and that's fine, but sometimes I'm really not. And so I'm thinking, to Micah's point, like, okay, so somebody has given me something, has seen me, has had the audacity to see me and ask me to do something and given me money for it. And then there's something about that transaction that can make me feel, and this has happened, like that was fraudulent. Like whatever that was, whatever it was that got me there, I can't trust it. Right? Because I'm a manipulator, or because I'm whatever, even though that's not, it's like, it's a lot of story. And I think that is a big piece though, to learn to trust that. And I think it's easier in those times to just say, oh no, there's sales rules, there's all these things that are going on, and you know what I mean? Like, to try to take shelter in that, like this thing that like beats us up. Right? That's not shelter, and that's not protecting me or anybody from my magic, because it's there anyways. So good luck with that. But anyhow, I don't know if that helps at all, but I kind of feel like it's all wrapped up in trusting ourselves.
Yes. I mean, to get like really metaphysical about it, right? Control is an illusion, and the like true nature of existence is divine chaos, right? So we are actually wildly out of control all the fucking time, right? And that's why it's so terrifying, because we're just free falling through the void of existence all the time. But we have control around ourselves to create safety and security. But what if the safety and security what if it's all an illusion anyway? So why not pick a paradigm that you feel good in? That's essentially my business framework, right? It's all illusion. So let's pick a framework that feels good instead of one that feels rooted in self-rejection and pain and suffering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts, questions, hungers? This has been such a delight. I am so grateful for the way all of you showed up. I truly love when my agenda gets, speaking of divine chaos, I love when my agenda immediately gets thrown out the window because something juicy and delicious is showing up in front of us instead. If on the other side of this, you have some percolating question that shows up, either about what we talked about, how it applies to your own business, I do offer anyone from these workshops a 20-minute consult call just to kind of digest and chat further. So please feel free to schedule that or shoot me emails with questions. And if you would like to come along on the business incubator, I would love to have you. This was a blast. Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Carly. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you all. Thank you,
friends.
Kylie. Have a good day.